and it looks like a hand of 6 for Kaplan and a hand of 5 for Sean. So where should people be betting their channel points right now in the prediction poll, do you think?
I think I would probably say that Madness has not substantial advantage in this matchup, but I would think it's a little bit too fast and resilient for what Dead Gael's going to be able to manage consistently. A lot of their cards, like cards like Liliana the Veil, like don't even have much of a text box in this matchup, right? Like him to talk, like that might be an active downside. They Stoneforge Mystic is really strong, and Swords to Plowshares is also really good. So I could definitely see those two cards pulling a lot of weight in this matchup. But I think for the most part, the Madness player is going to have kind of free reign to do whatever they want. And the Madness deck is resilient enough to kind of power through a lot of destruction. But that being said, we see this game started, and it started with a Dark Ritual, Dark Confidant, and that's the kind of start that the Madness player is really going to need in order to kind of battle. You really want to keep that card advantage flowing and just try to keep up with them as much as you can.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about losing a lot of life from Confidant against a
For
deck like
sure.
this Madness deck, but agreed. Like, as many cards as we can get in hand as possible, and draw the removal, draw my lifelink batter skulls, and
Yep.
the whole deal. That's going to be the path to victory for sure.
Yeah, Batterskull plus GTA, if they can assemble that, is going to be really strong.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. Like the two things that this Madness deck is aggressive and resilient. It's light on disruption, but
Hmm.
it's definitely definitely going to
Definitely
be
going
able
to
to
put.
put a lot of pressure in play very early and force opponents into really dire circumstances. And in that, a tried and true Magic strategy is just be aggressive enough so your opponent can't doesn't have time to enter it. So I think it's going to be pretty effective here.
Yeah. Um, there's something to putting enough pressure that they kind of stumble on their game plan and having to deal with yours.
Absolutely.
Um, Hello, Anarchy Inducer in chat. Thank you. I fixed that. Um, and well, what card is this? Burning
This is
Inquiry.
yep, which is a very, very powerful card that not a lot of decks in Magic have really gotten to take advantage of historically.
Hmm.
But we've seen this a lot in the kind of corollary strategy in Modern, and it was pretty effective there. And it's does make a lot of sense to see it show up here. It's going to be really potent, and it's definitely going to lead to some of Dave's most potent starts. We know he found the hollow one off of the Once Upon a Time. So if he keeps one of those around, it's going to be a tome 1/4/4 straight off the bat, and we'll see kind of see where it ends up from there. But
Yeah, players now figuring out this Burning Inquiry. Not the best card for webcam Magic, but I think they're
no,
figuring it out.
no. I mean, both of them are playing cards that involve random things happening, which is going to be a little awkward.
Yeah, so looks like Voidwalker, Swords, and Dark Ritual for Sean.
And
LED, Putrid
infinite
Imp, and
looting.
Faithless Looting, right?
Yep, yep. So here's Hollow One number one. Hollow One number two, yeah, this is the kind of stuff that's going to be tough. And he did so. Sean only has two cards left in hand, and taking 3 damage right off the bat, and discarded one of the swords to bog pairs. So this is certainly going to be a tricky situation. And this is the power of the Madness deck. I mean, Dave still has a couple of cards in hand because like he put these 4/4s in play, but he didn't have to commit that many resources to it. He basically just downed one card from the Burning Inquiry like
Yeah,
overall, and his board is still just very dominant here. So
yeah. Attacking for 8 is
it's
pretty
no
good.
joke. Yeah, it's no joke.
I think if Sean would have followed up with a Stoneforge there, fetching Batterskull, we'd be having a different conversation. But right now, I think the advantage bar is far to the right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, getting Batterskull would be a pretty big game here. But this is the problem with Dark Confidant here. Like that was one of Sean's more potent starts, but it doesn't really. The fact that Bob not only doesn't impact the board, but you don't have the time to convert the cards you generate into a substantial advantage, and on top of that, you can't really apply pressure. Like Dark Confidant, one of it, the power of Dark Confidant is that it's a 2/1, so it can like start applying some early pressure. You just don't get to do that in this matchup too much. So it's going to be tough.
So swinging for 8 here, putting Sean already at 9, I believe. Yeah, ouch.
So this is interesting sequencing from Dave. He's gonna cast this once upon a time, but if I were him, it might have been worth doing before you attacked because you could find something like anger. I mean, I don't know what's in his hand. Maybe he just has all land or something. But you could find something like anger and then just cast a Faithful Looting from your graveyard. It's just better to get a little bit of that information beforehand. Like if you can assume your opponent's not going to block your 4/4s, and if they do, it's not like a huge deal for you. So I think it's just a little bit better to cast that before combat. Just get information while you can.
Yep. So we saw him to Turok get drawn there for Sean. That is not a good card.
No, really bad. He's missing lands, and he just has to pass. So there's not going to be too many more turns left to this game unless Sean can put together a couple of Sword Sabages here. That would be really good. But he's probably going to have to jump block either way because going to 3, even if he has Sword Sabages, going to 3 is a lot because his deck has like 5 to 7 3 drops, something like that, and also a 5 and a 7 drop. So he's more than likely going to take some damage here.
Yeah, a gamble here for Kaplan. Not sure what he would find with this. You have any idea?
Man, there's so many good different options that would be effective here. He could find Anya's Ravager because then if you discard it, like that's good, and if you don't discard it, you still have LED. You could
Right.
find Anger, just get it in the graveyard, see what's going to happen from that. Um, Vengevine isn't unreasonable if he has a couple of Basking Root Wallers in hand, which I don't think he does because he would have had to draw them. Because we know he has an Arid Mesa, so we know he has an Arid Mesa and 2 Blights. So um, he could also just find a Burning Inquiry, try to like spike something. So that's not unreasonable. But I think Ravager would be the best choice because Ravager is a very effective card.
Yep. Well,
Activating the
he's making
LED.
mana.
Oh, he found Ox. Ox makes a lot of sense here too.
True.
So triple red. Just got the Ox plus the Vengevine. He's just going to draw 3 cards, and that's part of the thing that makes this deck so resilient. You know, he's committed a lot of resources to getting these 4/4s on board really quickly, and yet he's basically going to be up on cards on his opponent, which is a very powerful place to be.
Yep.
Still 1 red mana in his mana pool. So if he finds any creature, he's bringing back a Vengevine, which is just straight up lethal. Because it is casting the Ox. There's the Root Waller. Yep.
Well, that's pretty good.
And
All right.
that'll do it.
Yep. That's game one for Kaplan. Yeah, and what I like about the monkey when comparing specifically to Dreadhorde Arcanist is that a blocker deals with it too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Dreadhorde was able to deal with your blocker before, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
That made a big difference.
Yep, completely.
Okay, we're getting started here for game two. Scrubland with Guru altering on it. It looks like for Sean.
Yeah. Very, very nice looking Scrubland. I don't know if he's thinking about whether to play something or he's past his turn. Okay, so it seems as if he passed his turn. That's not necessarily a great situation. Oh, but I
Oh,
see. He held up the mana for a Dark Ritual Opposition Agent. This is a very potent start from him.
yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to get a guaranteed land drop to deny his opponent the ability to start and um, get a lot of information about what's going on here. And especially seeing what's in Dave's hand. You know, he has Burning Inquiry, Putrid Imp, Anya's Ravager, Anger, and Gamble. Dave's hand is still able to function pretty well on a future turn, but right now this might slow him down enough, and 3/2 is going to start to apply some pressure that if Sean can follow this up with anything somewhat reasonable, I'm going to feel pretty good about his circumstance.
Way easier for us to point this out than for the players, but should Dave have just started on a Taiga?
Um, I think he was planning on casting the Putrid,
Gotcha.
which it's possible you can sniff out Dark Ritual Opposition Agent, but there's only 2 Opposition Agents in this deck, so I'm not necessarily sure you should play around that. And it's very believable that Sean would keep a hand with no turn 1 plays because his only turn 1 plays are Dark Ritual into something or Swords to Plowshares. So I think this is a reasonable chance just to go for the highest upside and get the Putrid in because he still has the ability to rebuild, and this is devastating. But like that gamble is turned off now because now that would be a pretty difficult way to do it. That would actually gamble would be really bad for Dave if he did it because he would get to
Yeah, mini
tutor
cards.
a card that Sean gets to play and then have to discard a card at random. So um,
That's
that
actually
would be
pretty sick. Yeah.
yeah, that's a tough way to do it.
So
But we'll see if any good follow up from Sean, specifically Stoneforge Mystic. I'm feeling pretty good for Sean here. But
yeah. So now Sean can play that Badlands. Is that right? I always forget how this works.
yes, he can play it if he wants. It seems like he's going to choose to fetch instead. Um,
Gotcha.
and he's going to get placed on Forge. Yeah, no, this is a great follow up, and the fact that Opposition Agent essentially stifled your opponent in this circumstance, because it doesn't matter too much that Sean gets to land. Like that matters a little bit, but preventing him from developing was the big thing here.
Yeah.
It means that by the time Dave actually gets to develop, it might be a little bit too late. So
Yeah.
this is very strong, very strong from
So
Sean.
are we automatically getting Batter Skull here?
There's some question to getting Kaldra, and I actually kind of like it here because it means that you get to assume the aggressive role as opposed to the defensive role. Because one of the things with Kaldra is that because it has haste, next turn you're just going to crack in for 8, and you're going to put your opponent on the same back foot that they were putting you on in game 1, where now there's just a little bit too much for them to deal with, especially when they can't like fetch in such a black sources, you know? The flip side is that Kaldra, your life total is high enough that Kaldra as a 5/5 first strike with all of its other abilities is just going to be enough to effectively protect you because it's not like Battleskull. One of the things that makes Battleskull so good is when you're low, it trades with something, it gains you to life, and it kind of lets you transition into like a more stable board state. But Kaldra can just hold back, and with your life total being high, you don't necessarily need to gain the life, and you can just start attacking at any point. So Kaldra is a very good choice here, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. And am I crazy or does Opposition Agent have 3 power?
But yeah,
It
it's
does.
just like
All right, let me just talk to the players real quick. I think they have life totals wrong. Hey guys, I have Dave at 16. Is the fetch and the 3 from Opposition Agent.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
perfect. Just
Okay.
keep that in the butt right now.
Yep. Don't want someone to finish the game at 1 life.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. So now I think he passed turn, right? Yeah. He passed turn.
Yeah, I think Dave's currently thinking about what to do, which I mean it makes sense. This is a tough situation. His best circumstance is probably just to cast Burning Inquiry to get the Cauldron out of the hand. Because he could discard the Cauldron and then find like 2 hollow ones and just discard his own anger, and now suddenly he's in a great situation again. So
Yeah.
this Burning Inquiry is gonna have to do some work. You're gonna have to get step 1 is discard the Cauldron, and step 2 is find some of your own stuff. But I think if he can do both of those, he's actually going to be switching the narrative here a lot. I think he'll end up in a pretty good circumstance.
Yeah. We'll have to see if the Cauldron Complay Hat gets discarded here.
Yeah, and that was another card that we didn't talk about too much when it was
Yeah.
printed.
I don't think we did. I don't
But
know.
it's a great card. It's
It is.
really reinvigorating these Stoneforge strategies, and I think it's a big part of the reason that Death and Taxes is kind of reaching a much higher point in effectiveness at this point.
Yeah.
I think Death and Taxes is a very good deck.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so Dave is discarding. Just want to see. It looks like 2 vampires
And the fetch land.
and a fetch lands, Angie's Ravager, whatever it's called.
Yep.
And the Cauldron got deleted. And,
Yeah, so that is good. That's at least something. We'll see what else he has here, but discarding the fetch land is obviously not bad. He would have preferred to discard the gamble, and the anger, of course. But at the very least, you're getting rid of that Cauldron. We'll see what other follow up we have here. He's wastelanding, so he's just going on the warpath here.
Yep. And in the past, because I think this deck is kind of like, I don't know, the word romanticize comes to head for some reason. Dead Gael has like a history in Magic. Why would someone choose to play this deck in current Legacy? Like, what are they hoping to prey on? What are their weaknesses? What's like the quick rundown of this deck right now?
I think romanticize is a great word to describe Dead Gael. Dead Gael is like a very, very much a fan favorite deck.
Yeah.
It does a lot of cool things. You know, I'm a huge fan of these white black mid range strategies. Esper Stoneblade was one of my favorite decks. Just being able to disrupt your opponent and play these creatures that your opponent has to deal with, and kind of move along and get to play a real game of Magic. It's a very fun deck. So it makes sense that people would like care for it so much. I think one of the things it does, like this deck does well right now, is I mean it just plays Stoneforge. I think Stoneforge is very well positioned at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very strong card. You're getting to do a lot of different things with GT, Batterskull, and Kadra all in the mix, and it forces opponents into really difficult situations. You have a lot of good removal for Delver decks, and it's gotten a lot of, at least reasonable pickups. I mean, this list has Opposition Agent and Sedgemoor Witch, which are both pretty solid. You get to play a bunch of cheap removal, which is good against Ragavan. Um, I don't think it would be. I don't think it's quite reaching the point where it's going to be like competing with Death and Taxes because it's kind of occupying a little bit of that same space at this point.
Yeah. It's a fair deck.
But
Yeah.
but if you're expecting a very fair metagame, it's definitely reasonable to play a strategy like this.
Yeah, and for these 3 round bracket tournaments that we do, a deck like Dead Guy L could take it down if
For sure.
it it's definitely worth considering decks like that on a special format tournament like this.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and especially because, as we were discussing before the show starts, people tend to play Delver at these events
Yeah.
in large numbers. So bringing a deck that you at least perceive to have a good Delver matchup, I think that's kind of a misattribution in Legacy. People tend to think their Delver matchup is better than it is in general. Uh,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people bring decks to beat Delver, but usually they struggle a little bit more than they want to imagine.
Yeah.
But I do think there are a lot of good tools in this Dead Guy L deck to battle effectively against Delver. So it makes sense to build if you're expecting to face a Delver here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the people that watch this show week to week, and we were talking about this before the stream starts, you're expecting to see Delver on this
Yeah, totally.
Wednesday competitive bracket show. We'll see what the players are playing in the later rounds, but
Yeah.
um,
I think somebody in chat asked if there was a Firestorm in his hand, and there was, but it got Thoughtseized. So it would have been good against the board,
mm,
but Dave cast it and drew it off the Burning Inquiry with only one land in play, and then Sean untapped and thought seized it, got rid of the Firestorm. So I'm pretty sure there is a Firestorm there that was discarded to the Thought Seize, and that's why it didn't clean up the board. But um, this is interesting. He's going Fury to kill the opposition agent and the Stoneforge, but not both Stoneforges. That's actually pretty interesting because this Stoneforge is going to put in a Batterskull, and that's going to be pretty tough to beat.
yeah, Batterskull seems nightmarish in this exact situation.
Yeah, because there's nothing because Fury isn't pyrokinesis, you can't even put it into play to kill a Batterskull at the end step. So this is just going to come in. There's really not that much counterplay that Dave can have, especially because he's missing line drops.
Right.
But I think this is Dave's deck kind of doing. I mean, Sean's deck doing exactly what it was designed to do. Just kind of getting aggressive, having a really potent start. That opposition agent really swung the tempo of the game really heavily, and he was able to back it up. Like Sean kind of played a double role there. He stifled the
Yep.
turn one fetch land, then he played a good threat, and then he wastelanded all of his cards from there. So that was a very effective way to play that game, and no surprise to see Sean take this game down.
Do I have any other announcements? Oh, I have to thank a new YouTube member. Let me get this name right. Hit the join button on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Thank you, new YouTube member Donald Rober. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. Appreciate it. Okay, we're started here for game 3. Looks like a Korean Bloodstained Mire cracked and a Burning Inquiry.
Yeah, this is of course the strongest start he can really possibly yield. Putting Inquiry, a very random card, you really don't know what you're getting, but in the way Dave's deck is built, it, it's generally an upside to discard cards. So this is a
Yep.
great start.
Yep. Could be a disaster for Sean if his hand is pretty reliant on a few cards as well.
Yeah, totally. And for anybody who's playing against this Madness deck and you have some counter spells in your deck, this is the card to counter.
Yes,
You
agreed.
got to stop them from discarding cards. Burning Inquiry is their most potent way of doing so. But if this was a Putrid Imp or Faith of Looting, I would be countering that all the same. You really have to stop their enablers. So,
Yeah,
um,
very very similar to countering an entomb or whatever.
yes,
Thoughtseize,
absolutely.
swamp, scrubland discarded for Sean.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, getting a little bit of vibe from Sean's body language that might not have been what he wanted. But that being said, the discard from Dave was pretty poor. He discarded a Faith Looting, a Putrid Imp, and a Bone Shards, all cards he wants in his hand. So
Let's see
unless
if
he has some hollow ones here to follow up, which it looks like he does, at least one. We'll see if there's anything additional. But 144 is good. It's not gonna end the game, but it is strong.
yep.
I could see, a Dark Ritual kind of really out of the veil here. Dodge Seas, though. I mean, that's not bad at this stage. I mean, those two Root Wallers and a Burning Inquiry and a Faith of Floating. Okay. That's tough. That's a tough situation.
Yeah. What do you like here? Burning Inquiry? That's probably the best
Yeah,
engine.
I think because the Root Wallers will be free, but if Sean has a follow-up of a Stoneforge Mystic, he might be able to stabilize the board well enough with that. And the Root Wallers don't have the green mana yet, so just a couple 1/1s is not too devastating, even though they're still going to have 3 cards in hand. So, like, that's the resiliency of this deck I was talking about. But nevertheless, even with the green mana, it's not too bad. He just really needs to follow it up with Stoneforge. Stoneforge is kind of everything in this matchup.
Yeah.
It's really, really important.
Yeah. Stoneforge looks really good right now, but it's gonna take 2 turns to drop it. We'll see how
Yeah,
much
if he
damage
if
we
he
get
plays
in.
it next turn, then he's going to take 4 +1 +3 hypothetically if Dave wants because he can't really block it for a while because of activation. Um, so he's not quite dead, and it does stabilize the board from there. This Putrid Imp is going to cause some additional problems, though. Oh, he got a bad land, so maybe he has another green source in hand. Uh, but that could be good if you actually have Stoneforge.
Yeah. Well, you didn't discard Stoneforge. Let's see what the follow. Ooh,
Okay.
just passing. Ouch.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, he does have that one copy of Damn in hand. We also know he has Zealous Persecution in his hand, which it looks like he might be going for. No, he's going for a Sword to Plowshares. This is going to keep the board pretty clear, though. I mean, his life total is going to be at a relatively stable 11 because Dave decided to play the Putrid Imp as opposed to get a green source. So, which might end up working out well if he draws some cards he like actively wants to discard. But not having the green mana for this Ruwa is going to alleviate some amount of pressure that he's facing down because only taking 3 or 4 damage because the Putrid Imp has threshold, like that's not that bad.
Lapark, one of our viewers, I believe in Brazil, says, "I'm sorry to disappoint you, Rich, but I became a D&T player. Forgive me." How do you feel about that?
Oh, I feel very good about that. I'm not. I'm not. I think people like creating boxes, and I understand why people do that. But I've never viewed myself as a Delver player above all. If they banned all of the Delver deck, I'd play some other deck, and it'd be fine. So, people should just play what they enjoy. There's a lot of great decks, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying or playing a deck for any reason you want to play it for. So
All
that's
right.
great. I'm happy for you.
All right. A reasonable answer, everybody.
I remember because I've played a lot of the good decks in Magic's history that have been banned, Splinter Twin and Miracles and stuff like that. And people are always like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you lost your deck." And it's like, I'll just play something else. It's cool. There's more decks.
Yeah, yeah, true, true.
But we see this Plague Engineer come down and completely stabilize the board pretty much.
Yeah,
It looks like Dave's gonna flash back up Faith of Looting, but the fact that he's naming Lizard turns off a decent amount of Dave's deck here. So
yeah. I guess both walls of lizards, so they're pretty
yeah,
much shut
yeah.
off. That's 8 cards.
Yeah, he basically just has to deal with this Putrid Imp and then any potential Madness cards that's going to come in their future. What Dave is really looking for here is Ox of Agonas, or maybe Vendrine, something like that. Just some kind of way to get some value going forward here.
True.
So discarding Ancient Grudge, that's good for him because that's going to make a Batterskull less potent. But Kaldra is indestructible, so
That's true. Yeah, Caldra is annoyingly indestructible.
Yeah, absolutely. So
His
he's going to
cards.
cast the Rootwalla for some additional value, so it can instantly die. Just an extra morbid trigger. Why not?
Yep. Good old Plague Engineer. Well, Sean's at 8 life. Still is a risky life total, I guess.
Definitely. I'm seeing a little bit of lag here. Don't know what this is.
That was a
Oh,
damn.
oh, damn on a single target. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And it actually, I thought damn might be the kind of card he had earlier. It because even though he only has one copy, it's the kind of card that if you're not going to play something like Stoneforge, it's the kind of card you're going to want to find and like keep in your hand. So, it makes sense for him to have it here. I don't actually like this attack too much. I mean, you do have to get
I was
your
just gonna.
opponents
Yeah.
dead, but
It's a risky
I
attack.
yeah, I'm still a little bit concerned with Vendrine, but with the bone charts here, that's pretty good. And Dave doesn't have much else going on, but an Anya's Ravager here is really strong. This is the exact card Dave needed to get back in this game.
Yeah.
Um,
What does it do
if
again? Whenever you attack, you discard your hand.
Yeah, so it has to attack each turn, and whenever it attacks, you discard your hand and then draw 3 cards. So
Ouch.
it's an excellent card in this matchup. It's really going to punish Sean if he doesn't have a removal spell that he um did that cast that dam last turn because you really like the Putrid Imp was applying pressure, but you really have to kill the Anu Avenger. That's a key card. Um, yeah, because that's what gives him that adds layers to the resiliency that this black white deck might not be able to manage.
Yeah.
But with a fetch, maybe he has something. He has a 4 drop. Dog Confidant, Dog Confidant. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say this is not great for Sean because if he wants to get the Ravager off the board, he has to double block. If he double blocks, Dave still gets to draw 3. And if you don't double block, you're going to take 3, which means you're at 4 with double dog confidant in your deck that plays a 7, a 5, and a number of 3s. So
Yeah. Yeah. Dark Confidant with Caldra in the deck is a little tricky.
it's a little iffy. I mean, it's not an unbelievable thing. Sometimes you just need to like hope you don't kind of flip that kind of stuff. Used to play Tasigur in Modern Jund because if you flip the Tasigur, it's like, okay, well, at least I drew a Tasigur. But, when you're facing down enough aggression, it can be really problematic. But the fact that the best he could do last turn was double dog confidant, and he's just double blocking now, probably means he only has a land or maybe one of his equipment in hand. Because if he had something like a Liliana, he would have played it. He would have held up Opposition Agent if he had that, because that straight up trades with the Ravager. So we can get a lot of information about what he has, and this is starting to look pretty bad. Um, Discarding an Anger too.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's going to be really tough as things go forward here.
Wait, why didn't he attack?
Because this is post combat, because Anya's Ravager drew him these
Oh,
cards.
sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Um,
Yep, he has nothing. He's playing a wasteland.
ouch. That's not good.
He might have drawn an opposition agent or like a zealous persecution. Maybe that's going to buy him a little bit of time here, but Dave has a lot of resilient cards at the moment, so it's looking like it's going to be tough. And if he had anything else, he might have just kept that anger because it just attacks for 2. Like
Right?
if he had nothing else in hand, he probably would have kept that. So I would assume he has more cards in hand.
Yeah. Does have haste too.
I don't think he can have the card back for more because he doesn't have any green mana in his deck, but it would be strong here.
Which one is that?
It's a 6 mana uncommon from core set 21.
Oh.
It like reanimates a creature from your graveyard, and then that creature fights something else.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
it would be very good here.
It would.
But obviously, I'm being only slightly facetious.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Hammy Slammy was referencing that card or not, but that's still funny. All right.
Anya's Ravager with haste here. I mean,
Yep.
that's lethal as it stands because 8 damage coming in. Sean unfortunately got really punished for the dam play. Now, that being said, he still would have been facing down that Putrid Imp, which might have been problematic anyway because his hand had multiple copies of Dark Confidant. So when the board is just Plague, I guess it wouldn't have been Plague Engine at that point. It would have just been two Dark Confidants versus a Putrid Imp. The fact that you're taking two a turn really matters at that point. So it still would have been a little bit tough to deal with, and he would have had to find an answer. But not having the removal from the Anya's Ravager is certainly what turned this game around. So
All right, so that puts Sean at -1 and seals the deal. All right,
yeah,
Madness takes round one.
yeah, I'm gonna rejoin
Oh
the
yeah, go ahead.
thing. Uh,